All right. Hey, folks. It's me, Owen Faraday from Pocket Tactics. I am joined today by Brad Cummings, Marketing Director at Shenandoah Studio, and Craig Moffett, who was the lead developer on Desert Fox, which is what we're going to be playing today, the third game in Shenandoah's Crisis in Command World War II operational war game series. So, Brad, Craig, you guys want to say hi?
Yeah. Thanks for coming and check this out. Thanks, Owen, for doing this.
All right. Hey, folks.
We are
It's
excited
Owen
to do
Faraday
this,
from Pocket
and
Tactics. I am joined
we're,
today
we're looking forward to showing people the game. We're getting ever closer to launch, and this is the first time we're showing people live gameplay, so we're really excited. Craig, anything you want to add?
Yeah, it's been a really fun process. We've been with this game for a long time. We started off with in our initial Kickstarter. We've had this game kind of in the back of our minds since then, so since the start of the company, and we're finally ready to roll it out here. So it's really exciting.
Yeah,
awesome.
I think it was a longer process for this game, but it's really become with the campaign mode, which we're going to see today, and other things. It's become kind of a similar game in the same series, but definitely a different kind of game, a new experience, like a very, where maybe Bulge to Moscow was like a half step in terms of change of mechanics and things like that. Here, the campaign mode really brings like a whole new experience to the game, which is pretty cool. So it
Yeah,
makes
I've had a chance to mess with the game a little bit the last couple of days, and I've deliberately not dug into it too much, just so I can maximize the potential to make a fool out of myself today. But I saw a lot of new stuff already. There's a whole new. You guys have changed the supply system radically. There's minefields. There's different units. And what we've done is we've gone ahead and set up a multiplayer game between Craig and myself. And we're going to show you how all that stuff works live by the seats of our pants. So, all right. So I'll tell you what. Let me share. Should I share my screen for the moment? Let's do that.
Yeah, that might be
Yeah,
good. You can make it see it from your perspective. Oh, good.
I guess you've got the briefing objectives.
Yep. So I've got the.
It's a great place to jump off for the historical introduction. So this is the El Alamein campaign. This is in North Africa. This is Rommel has just defeated the British and is kind of rushing all the way towards Egypt. And so the objectives in all these scenarios for the Axis player is to get off the map east and capture Egypt. And if they
right.
do,
so you've got a really as the Axis player, you've got an interesting sort of dynamic where exiting units off screen gets you points, but it also leaves you weaker on the battlefield for that turn, doesn't it?
And for the rest of the game, there's some mechanics in campaign where even dead units will recover and get rebuilt and put back. But if they get off the map, they're never coming back.
So let me look at the supply here, because you guys have done a pretty radical change with how supply works in this game. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So in Bulge and Moscow, if at the end of any turn you couldn't trade supply, the unit was paralyzed forever until you reestablish supply, and they were just kind of stuck. So that's different for Desert Fox. So if you're out of supply, so first of all, you kind of hold supply. If you just sit there for a long time, you don't do anything. You don't use your gas, you don't use your bullets, so you can kind of save that for some later turn. So if you get cut off, you can still use that unit at full power once with that reserve of supply.
Right.
Then more so, once you use up your supply and you're out of supply, this is a really big open desert. It's like impossible to completely deny supplies to these units. So if you're cut off and you don't have any more supply, then you still get to move actually just one space instead of your full mobility, and you also have a bunch of combat penalties.
I mean, the other thing that's kind of evident from right here that I want to point out is just how much bigger the map is than even Moscow was. Like Moscow was a pretty pretty significant increase in size compared to Bulge, but this thing is huge compared to that.
The number of spaces in the map is actually closer to Bulge. Moscow's our biggest map, and Moscow has
a number of spaces.
Moscow had a bigger theater in terms of the number of miles per space.
Right. So is it that the roads allow for more movement in this one?
Yeah, units are just much more mobile here because you've got less. There's also less roadblocks or things like that that are going to channel or slow movement. And we've got recon units, which we've introduced here that can move very far, even into enemy territory, which I think really changes things up quite a bit.
Yeah, so
because that's really what the feel that I got from this game was that it's much more about outmaneuvering and getting around the other player when possible, because there's just it felt to me erroneously, I guess, but it felt like there was more space to work with. Maybe that's just because things are more mobile.
I think that's right. It's a more open game. I mean, there's open desert for 200 miles, and if there's nothing in your way, you can get pretty far. And that's the feel we're really trying to get an Africa game. So the basic thing you'll notice about mobility is if you're moving along roads or trails, they're treated the same way in this game. You get to move 3 spaces instead of 2, like you could do in Moscow or Bulge. So that's already, you can jump into space, back out of space. You can do a lot of little 3-step dances instead of 2. Right. And then we also have a new unit type, which is kind of a light, light recon unit for the Axis player, and that can move 3 spaces in any kind of terrain. So you can go up and down ridges and any kind of path you want, 3 spaces. So that's a powerful tool for mobility. They're all pretty small units, but they can go pretty far. So we definitely were trying to go for an open feel with more mobile units.
All right, let's. These poor people have been waiting 10 minutes to see the game, not a bunch of bearded guys talk about the game. So let's get into it. So we've just started this match. I've accepted the invite from Craig. So this is the very first turn. Craig, you want to tell us a little bit about the setup of the scenario? When are we historically, and what are we looking at? What are the stakes?
So this is 1942. This is July 1st. So what's just happened historically is there's been a big back and forth in the desert, but there was just recently this big important defeat of the British 8th Army, and they're kind of running for their lives to the east, and they kind of decided there's one final place that they can make a stand before the Germans get all the way, capture all of Egypt and cut off the Suez. And the reason that they chose this particular place, El Alamein, is because there's like a little pinch point in North Africa, and if you see on the bottom of the map here, there's these really brown rocky things. That's the Qatar Depression. So it's basically like a giant cliff, and then there's sand, and nothing can really get down there other than camels.
Right.
So that's a good defense on the south, and then on the north you've got the Mediterranean Sea. Right in here, it's the Arab's Gulf is the particular part of it. So there's nothing particularly important about El Alamein as a place other than the fact that it's in this interesting geographical place. I think if you zoom in pretty close to El Alamein, you'll see there's like 2 buildings there.
Yeah.
That's it. And you'll also notice there's like a little train tracks that goes from El Alamein to the east. So it's basically like they just stopped building the railroad. That's El Alamein. So that's where the British are going to make their.
It's really, strategically, it's got a lot in common with almost like the island hopping campaigns in the Pacific. Like, we're fighting here because it happens to be here, not because it's got any intrinsic value to itself.
That's right.
All right. So let's in the interest of showing off this new terrain and what it does, let's be totally rash and attack Craig at Kapanga here. Looks like Craig, you got some Kiwis there.
There are some Kiwis. There's some French. So we've got the first free French, and then the 6 New Zealand. So you are walking into a minefield.
I am walking into a minefield, quite literally. So let's see what happens when I walk into this minefield.
So leave that combat preview open for a second.
Okay.
You notice there's a bunch of modifiers when you're going into combat. So similar to Bulge and Moscow, there's some base to hit that each unit has, and then it's affected by other things. So minefields are kind of the way that you can basically add terrain to the game to make a place that's more defensible. So
the player can lay down minefields.
Yeah, in campaign. I'll get to that in a little bit.
Okay.
So minefields have a strength, either 1, 2, or 3, and you can see that very obviously by the number of little skull flags that are in that space.
Yeah, we've got 2. I see.
So for each of those, you're at -10 to hit. So you just dropped off 20% to hit per unit, which kind of stinks for you as the attacker. Also, the defenders get a bonus to hit, so we're at +10. So it doesn't look like you're going to do any damage because it's pretty stacked up against you. But what you will be able to do, if you click on that little flag in the lower right corner of the combat preview,
yep,
is you can clear those mines.
And that's because I brought a recon unit with me.
Yeah, everything except flak and armor can clear mines, and they've got a 30% chance for the Axis player. The Commonwealth have special Polish minesweepers, and they clear slightly more efficiently at 35%. So
wow.
Even though you're going to do no damage to my units, that other mode showed you're probably going to knock off a mine for next round.
All right. So let's do this very poorly thought out attack and see what happens. I should turn the sound on here.
You got one.
So you got one of the mines.
Now I gotta say, the thing that I've enjoyed the most out of the game so far is the new minefield detection sound effect. I love that.
Yeah. I think that's high on my list too. Yeah, that's one of the best.
It's very 1950s sci-fi movie. All right, Craig, it's your turn. Why don't you share your screen there?
So if you hit continue, it'll send the turn. Yep. All right.
I need to do some stuff down here.
Yeah. So AirPlay on my computer. Sorry, we're just getting it up right now.
Yes.
And
well, in the meantime, so Brad, tell me about sort of the evolution of Desert Fox, because this thing's been a couple of years in the making now, hasn't it?
Yeah. So you can go ahead and do your turn, but yeah, we pitched it as part of our original Kickstarter for Battle of the Bulge. We wanted to take advantage of the momentum we had to get people excited, to show that we're just going to be a one-trick pony, that we've definitely planning a series of these sorts of games. Then it became apparent through playtesting that this is a pretty hard scenario to recreate as a fun sort of direct back and forth war game. It's it's very World War I in its nature, where you kind of make some small attacks and then head back to your trenches over the period of several months. And so Nick Karp, our COO, came up with a really brilliant idea to take the system and turn it into more of a campaign where you actually got to control that sort of back and forth for several months. And as we'll see once we finish this combat turn, we will, we'll be able to, or this combat week, we'll be able to see kind of the options that we get each refit week, each week of the campaign, where we don't necessarily have to attack. We can take a turn to defend and to build up our forces to prepare for a bigger attack later on, which is pretty, key to how the historical event went down. Is General Montgomery is famous for waiting until he knew that he could win before he attacked. And so we're trying to kind of recreate that here and allow players to have that sort of freedom.
Yeah, so some of the two big challenges is how do you make a fun game where the actual scenario lasted 3 months and they only fought for about 3 weeks.
Right.
So
right.
75
a scenario about
round. Okay, that's a fun game. And then also, they laid so many mines in this theater that by the end of it, the second Alamein battle, where Montgomery finally made his push, it was similar to World War I in terms of static defenses, not much progress. So we had to get the time scale right and also get kind of the open feel of the desert that transitions to the slower feel of World War I,
right?
And kind of get that all together in a fun game. So that was the challenge.
All right, so let's look at what Craig's done on his turn. Craig, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't paying attention. What'd you do? We can replay.
Hit the replay, yeah. Check it out.
So I had a mobile force.
Moved some guy.
Yeah, I moved him around to kind of get some hard points here. So there's a few places that are good to defend in this otherwise empty desert. There's ridges, and there's deer. So ridges are basically, elevations, mountains, and then deers are kind of like big sandboxes, holes in the ground. So both of them have like a damage absorption similar to forests and towns in Moscow and Bulge. And then I'm also defending El Alamein. There's a couple surprises up there if you head up that way. But basically moving my armor to help defend in those two key places.
All right, so let's see here. Let's take advantage of this moment to look at the calendar and see when we're going to get any kind of reinforcements. So we're getting quite a lot of Italian reinforcements coming from the left side of the map here as the Axis, huh? We're getting, it looks like...
So we're actually, for the campaigns, we're looking at a weekly calendar. So the campaign takes place from July and then runs in the historical scenario all the way up through the beginning of December. So in order to fit that in,
so this is potentially a very long campaign. But is there any sort of sudden death victory that can cut it short?
Yeah. So first of all, if the Axis achieves their goal of getting units off the east of the map, if they get 6 units off, that's an instant victory. Axis wins. Game over.
Right.
That's it's a challenge to do that, just like it's a challenge to take Moscow and drive on Moscow. But that threat is always there. That's kind of motivating the Axis player.
Does the Commonwealth player have a sudden death?
They do not. They do not.
They don't.
That's right. Another thing that makes it so you don't have to play through 150 some combat days is the way that we accelerate time in the campaign. So every 2 weeks is a combat cycle, and either we're going to have like a hot fight during these 2 weeks, or we're going to be kind of refitting and building up our forces and laying mines. So you can kind of fast forward the breaks in combat, and then there might be 2 or 3 or 4 combat cycles where we're fighting, and then the other times we're kind of building up our strength. So even though there's 22 weeks and they could be 7 days each, the game is going to go quicker than that.
So I just moved an armored unit and a recon unit into one of those Dairs. Yep. So is there a maximum amount of bonus that armor gets in a Dair, kind of the way there was a maximum defensive bonus for armor in forests and stuff in Bulge?
Yeah, so here's what the rules are for the terrain. So a Dair is a soak of 1. So the first hit that the attacker shoots against the defender will be absorbed by the Dair.
Right.
Ridges have a maximum soak of 2. But in order to get that benefit of 2, you need to have 3 pips of strength on that ridge.
Right.
The ridge is kind of directional too. Like you only get that defense if you own the ridge. You're sitting at the top of the ridge, right? But the deer is anytime you're defending, whether or not you own the space, you get that 1 soak.
Gotcha. All right.
Defending the ridge. Moving up.
Yeah. So I put some elite Kiwis up on Rosite Ridge, so it's probably not going to be able to push me off there. That's okay.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see that. All right. So let's see. Now, tell me about laying minefields. What units can do that?
Any unit can lay a minefield. So once we get to a pause in the combat, let me talk about initiative.
Yeah, that's a good place.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Tell us about initiative.
Initiative is who goes first each day. It's really good to have initiative because sometimes you can make the last move of the day and then the first move of the day, and that can be powerful. When you get the first chance to move when everybody gets turned on again after they had their moves from the previous turn. So in all of our previous games, as well as the scenarios in this game, there is a single fixed side with initiative. So the Axis player always has initiative, or the Commonwealth always has initiative. So in campaign, that actually depends on player actions. So the Axis starts with initiative, but as soon as you let off the gas as the Axis player, the Commonwealth has a chance to steal that initiative. And basically, if they both let off the gas and say, "Oh, I'm not ready to fight. You're not ready to fight. Let's just take a break," that's where you go back into the refit phase. Right? Decide,
So how does that work exactly? So is it about who's passing turns?
Yeah.
Right. So if both players are consistently passing, not engaging in combat, then you'll start to see there's actually an indicator on the game board. The day marker, if I'm correct, right, will highlight red to show that the initiative is up for grabs.
That's right.
And we'll let you know kind of that you're at that brink of kind of ending that offensive push if you continue to kind of hold back.
Interesting. Okay.
So let's as soon as we get to day 2, we're going to see a new screen for the Axis player.
Yeah. So, let's keep it moving because we're almost at day 2 here.
Yeah, we're pretty close.
Yeah. So you'll notice that units that moved far or fought have their little out of fuel icon, and that means they've used up their supply. As a Commonwealth player, I have the advantage of kind of automatically filling up the gas tank of everybody who has a path back to home base. But the Axis player in this game had serious supply problems throughout the entire campaign, and they were lucky to get their gas. So you are going to be presented as soon as you get this turn with a decision for how you want to use your precious supply resources.
Okay.
So there are essentially supply points, and you have a finite number of them. You get more each week, but right now you just got 3 points, actually. What a point gets you is it guarantees that one unit will fill up their gas tank and get fresh bullets, and then it also helps other units have a chance to be resupplied.
So basically, I can designate certain units that will get resupplied, and every other unit rolls the dice to see if they get resupplied.
Exactly. Yep. So there's a nice interactive interface for this if you close the briefing. So you see the units that you could power up, a little red outline, and then there's kind of a color for every space that you own. And if you kind of click on a few different units to power them up, you'll see kind of the rising tide of supply for everybody else. So,
interesting.
So the more you spend, the more everybody gets filled up, but you also get more guaranteed units.
But so if I don't use any of my supply pips this turn, I can save them up, and the next turn I can launch an offensive.
Right.
So what does that get me?
So you can use a supply, exactly. You can save your supply and use it for pushing forward, supplying a lot of units all at once. Another key use of it is when we get to a new campaign week, in order to launch an offensive as the Axis, correct me if I'm wrong, but you will need a certain amount of supply to launch that offensive. So you can't select to go on the attack unless you have a certain amount of supply saved up.
Right.
Gotcha.
So we talked about.
And going on the attack is it's about supply levels. If I go on an offensive, I all of my units will have a certain amount of supply.
So every turn you have, even if you spend no supply, you've got a base chance to get supply. That's kind of what you get for your attack. You also get the initiative if you spend those 5 points to declare an offensive. Now, when we talked about keeping up the attack and preserving the initiative, for the Axis player, that means you have to spend 1 point every turn. So you can't just limp your units across the map for a week and then power everybody up and exit. You've got to keep pressing the attack if you want to keep it in the combat week.
All right, so let's see. Let's see if I dive into El Alamein, well, it's moderately weakly defended. What are my chances of doing anything useful? Wow, not very good.
That's
Okay,
not great.
let's not do that.
So there's a couple bonuses in this game that can really stack up.
Yeah.
Tell me about those.
One of the key ones is combined arms. So that's just really using 2 different types of units at the same time. So specifically for this game, it means using armor together with infantry.
Right.
So if you attack with armor and infantry at the same time, you get a +10 hit for everybody in the whole group.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's you've got some units in El Beta that have a armor and a infantry that are together.
So in theory, well, but the German, that was all infantry. So let's see how would they do against your elite Kiwis. Not great.
They're also on the ridge, which is giving them.
So that ridge offers up a pretty decent bonus there.
Yeah, I mean, compared to the open desert, it's.
Yeah. So
it's
why don't you take your stack in El Beta and go down to that lonely Indian division in Nakabdu in the lower left corner, and we'll see the combined arms bonus, and you'll.
These poor guys down here.
Yeah, go squish.
I had forgotten about
them. And you do gain, victory points for destroying units, so it's a useful thing to pick off each.
Now, if I've got a mixed Italian-German force in a space, can I activate it like normal?
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, this is a first game with multiple nationalities on a faction. So you can activate them, as if they're just all on the same team. That's as normal. When it comes to assigning replacement strength, they do come in with a specific nationality. And then also, in order to get the combined arms modifier, basically it has to be a German armor and a German infantry together, because the Italians didn't have that tactic.
Interesting. Okay.
And actually, the Commonwealth did not have that tactic at the start. That was one of the things that Montgomery did. Is he sat the tank commander down and the infantry commander down and said, "Okay, you guys are going to work together." So we have turning on in the 11th week of the campaign the combined arms bonus for the Commonwealth.
Well, that's a very cool commitment to historical realism. I like that.
Okay, we got my screen shared here. So we have a power for the Commonwealth for the Desert Air Force. So this is the Royal Air Force in North Africa. It's called the Desert Air Force. In previous games, we had a commando or an air interdiction that would take a unit and activate it, so it couldn't move this turn. So to kind of keep with the supply feel, what the Desert Air Force does in Desert Fox is it takes some units, and if it succeeds, it will knock out their supply. And until they get resupplied, they're going to have that out-of-supply penalty.
Can you show the flak unit, possibly?
Sure.
One thing about this too is that the Axis has flak units, which actually reduce that chance. So if we select this, it's saying that they have a 40% chance because the flak gun is reducing it by 10%.
Oh, cool.
And as you can see, there's kind of these colored spaces. That effect for the flak gun actually applies to spaces around it, not just the space that it's in, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, let's try that. So we knocked out the gas of your Desert Africa core.
I never liked you, Craig.
So I said there's a little surprise in El Alamein. So
You did.
We're gonna see it. So it's there is concentrated in El Alamein. There is heavy artillery, and so there was some similar bonuses in Battle of the Bolt where.
Oh, so that's why I wasn't even. Is it an offensive and a defensive bonus?
Yes. So the Commonwealth artillery.
Yeah.
And
so that's why I wasn't even getting a chance to make a dent in your El Alamein forces then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically +10 to hit.
Oh.
So for the beginning of the campaign, they just had all their artillery in El Alamein, and they're like, we're going to guard this particular place. And then towards the end of the campaign, they're like, we need to start, attacking and moving forward. So they distributed their artillery, all across the line, and then instead of locally concentrated, the first attack of each day, they get a bonus.
Aha. And what about on the defensive side? Do they get is that a permanent +10 to hit bonus or
Yes.
only one time?
Yeah, offense and defense. However, if I lose El Alamein, that bonus is gone forever. Even if I take it back, those guns are done, which can really affect your ability to kind of push the Axis player off the map if you don't have that distributed artillery late in the campaign. So it's really important for me to not lose El Alamein. But in the meantime, I'll just use the artillery to shoot at some Italians.
Poor Italians. Oh, guys, I didn't know about the artillery. I wouldn't have put you there. I'm sorry. This is my bad.
That was a little cheap, but
that was messed up.
My wife hates that when I explain the rules incrementally.
Oh yeah, let me explain this rule. Why I'm going to win.
All right, let's. We've already been going for half an hour. Let's keep talking, but let's move through the turns more quickly so that we can see what the
more generally about things, or.
Yeah, so if you just make sure you don't spend any supply next turn, this we'll have this day end, and then the next day, and then we'll go to all the refit phases, which will be fun.
All right. Craig, did you send your turn already?
Yes, I did.
We may be waiting on Apple for a moment.
Waiting on Apple.
It's been so great so far.
No, it has been, hasn't it? Yeah, we were due for a pre-release bug, I guess. We'll go back to the main menu and come back and we'll jog it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, but just seeing what he's.
Yeah, there.
One turn. Yeah, I may have just.
Yeah, so Apple has a replica version of their Game Center technology, their servers and stuff for pre-release games in sandbox mode, and they don't invest as many resources in making that quite as snappy as their live version. So you can always go back to the main menu though.
All right. Let's see what we can do here. So that +10 artillery bonus is El Alamein and the spaces adjacent to El Alamein.
Yeah, there's 4 spaces next to it too.
Oh man! So just to see it in action. See, I should be getting much better odds here, but what the hell?
You have a pretty good chance though at the
You only
retreat.
live once.
25% maybe.
One lousy hit.
Hey, that's
All right.
0.
I'll take it now.
So one of the kind of key strategy things for the Axis player is to really take advantage of that combined arms bonus.
Yeah.
You can use that anywhere on the board where you have the armor and the infantry working together. You start off with 2 armor units, so you really want to try to keep that armor supplied and keep it with infantry that can help.
I just want to point out, once again, just to show that Craig Moffat cannot be trusted, my only other armor unit is all the way in the bottom left-hand corner of the board because he told me to send it there, people. When Craig Moffat calls and offers to sell you a set of encyclopedias or babysit your kids.
Yeah, I can't really vouch for him either. I don't know. All right, so bouncing it back to
me.
Yeah, we need to do that fancy trick. Looks like it hasn't even shown up there yet.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, there we go.
Interesting. So I don't control the space, but I still get the deer defensive bonus.
That's right.
Right.
So some other things about mines is they will control the space even if you abandon all your units. So they can be really good at slowing down.
Yeah, no, in the lower left-hand corner, we got you guys to retreat, and yet I don't control the space because there's still mines in there.
That's right.
Right.
Well, that's interesting. All right. Now, how do these flak units do against ground units? Are they pretty capable against armor and not infantry, or what's the story with them?
So the flak unit is basically a giant anti-aircraft gun on wheels. And
yeah.
In this
these are 88s or something.
Yeah, these are 88s. So in this theater, the Axis decided, hey, there's these guns and they're pretty good at shooting stuff. So let's shoot them at ground units too. So in addition to the air defense, they can participate in ground combat. Now they're not, you have to kind of sit them there and set them up. So really, they're only good on defense. So on offense, they just, they can just take hits and look up damage. But on defense, they fight as well as tanks.
Right. And but they're not motorized.
They are. They have the same mobility as armor. So
mine only got to move one space just now.
Oh, that's because my Desert Air Force.
You interdicted me in Desert Air Force. Craig. Always dropping the rule 10 minutes after it's useful.
So back to Owen.
Back to me. All right.
So that's flak. Air defense, fight as good as tanks on defense, provide soak on offense. We talked about the recon units. Those are the special units for this game. Let me kind of give a preview of what we're going to be seeing when we get to refit. So every 2-week cycle, the player decides whether or not, do I want to take advantage of my position and launch an attack, or do I want to sit back and try to recover or gain some strength, lay some mines. The way it works is we present a choice to the commander. Do you want to attack or refit this week? So first the Commonwealth player gets to make that decision, and if they attack, they get the initiative. And if they decline, then the Axis has a chance to declare the defensive and get the initiative. And they both decide they're going to sit back, then you get a refit week. So if we go to refit mode, we're going to have time to build our strength up. So we're going to get a whole bunch of reinforcements, like 2 weeks worth of reinforcements that we could just apply to damaged units. We also get to lay mines, which, as we saw how fun the mines are, we're going to get to choose where they go.
So wherever I've got units that control a space, they can lay mines in that space during the refit.
That's right. There's also a chance to redeploy some of your units because you got a break and you can move them around. So you'll have a chance to move a unit to a space where you want to place a mine during that refit process.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's a refit week. It's replacements, redeploying forces, and laying mines.
So when we're back on you, we might need to pop out and in again. Looks like.
Okay.
I mean, we're sending. Another interesting part is if you have units that are cut off, they actually get displaced. So if you overextend yourself as the axis, for example, and get cut off, you can you actually be pushed back to your territory and can take some damage along the way, even potentially being destroyed.
That's right. That's essentially, crawling back to your friendly lines, and if
Right.
you're too far away, that's a long walk in the desert without water or gas, and you take damage for each step that you had to retreat back to lines when you do a refit mode.
This is a cool feature here, actually. So you can assign reinforcements like you normally would, or if you saw there was a button that said
auto assign. Yeah, I should have done that for.
No, it's cool. But sometimes you'll have like a ton to assign, and it makes sense just to hit auto since the AI does a pretty good job of putting things where they should be, I think.
So this is the interesting thing now. So I have to spend at least 1 point to maintain the initiative.
That's
but
right.
I could hoard my other units if I had any to save up for the offensive next week.
That's right.
Right.
Now, Craig, why don't I have any points to spend? Was that a dice roll or?
So you started with 3, and you spend them on that the first couple of days.
Yeah.
In this campaign, Rommel, was not well prepared to attack, and he just kind of went on a shoestring. So I think the most you could do, even if you space it all out, is 5 days of combat before you kind of have to
Gotcha.
break as the axis.
So it would have been a perfectly valid strategic choice for the German player to just cool his heels and not do a lot of attacking in the first week.
Yeah, I think there is an opportunity. Like, you definitely have more forces right away, so you can make some gains. You kind of want to use the first week to, grab a little bit of ground and then refit. Because the Commonwealth in general is getting stronger faster.
Right.
So if you have enough gas to attack, you probably want to take advantage of that as an Axis player.
We've got a 3-unit per space limit, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
All right. See, I wanted to ask that before I did attacks, Craig Moffat. All right.
So you'll notice here you're attacking with units that don't have supply, so they're only hitting at 20 instead of their normal 30, and then they're attacking.
Well, also, I can't launch the attack, apparently.
You can.
No, it wouldn't let me.
Now commit.
Yeah, if you
Where's
commit.
oh, there's the commit button. Oh, okay. Gah, Greg.
I'll show you what a cutoff unit does, so that'll be worthwhile.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you show me what one of my cutoff units will do.
No, Craig makes the builds of this game, so he may have, I don't know.
Yeah, I think this deck is stacked.
That's right. Is it there? Still waiting.
Oh.
Should be sent.
Yeah, let's see the screen.
Yeah, it should be sent. We're just waiting for the turn to come in.
I'll just load that.
Got it? Yeah.
No, I'm
Oh no, you're still waiting? Hmm. I mean, the turn's sent. Alright, we're just waiting for the turn to come in. Sorry everyone, the Game Center can be a little tricky before launch sometimes. Well, while we're waiting for that turn, any questions about the game or?
I mean, one of the things that I've always enjoyed is watching which vehicle ends up as your icon. This time, you guys, is that an M3 Lee? What is that?
It is the I'm sorry.
I think that's the Matilda.
It is the Matilda, yeah.
Yeah. Matilda?
Correct.
Who gets to pick that? It seems like a fun gig.
Our art department, does a lot of the groundwork on that. Pat, our art director, is not only is he an amazing artist, he's actually, really big history fan. That's why he is.
Yeah,
part of the
of course
company.
you know, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And he we often will select a series of vehicles that we think might fit. I mean, this time we even explored. I think you can see it on our blog post. We explored putting a flak gun on there. We tried a couple different tanks. We really wanted to give the Commonwealth their due this time around. This is their big moment. This is a turning point of World War II, and it's all thanks to the the Eighth Army, to the Commonwealth. So we wanted to really highlight that, and in other places of the game as well, we've really focused on that.
One cool thing about the tank art is the Commonwealth is upgrading their tanks throughout the course of the campaign, and we actually have 3 different icons for the tanks in the game that, as the Commonwealth unit gets upgraded, it swaps between them. So we had a number of different tanks to choose from. We're trying to decide which ones to put in the game. So it starts off, and there's Crusader tanks, and then we've got the Bradley tank, and
the Shermans eventually.
And the Shermans come in. So those are the 3 different icons you'll see. And then the icon on the front, though, is a different one too.
Right.
So there was a lot of different hardware in the theater. Might have left his device. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Are we back?
We're still waiting on the turn to come in. We got it. Okay. Yeah, and that change of tank icon is it's part of the sort of reinforcement choice. Is as the Commonwealth, when you choose, to refit, your tanks will improve. They will be upgraded, and that's really in line with what happened historically. The arrival of the Sherman tanks was a big boon for the Commonwealth.
Well, and I mean, just between the refits, between the strategic level balance between attacking and saving your supply points to attack later,
right.
It's very different, and I guess I can see why it's taken so long to get it out the door, because you guys have really messed with the Crisis and Command formula a lot. Are you worried that it's too big of a departure from Bulge and Moscow?
I don't think so. The core combat and strategy is there. That really hasn't necessarily changed. But I think what it really does is just provide a new take. I think it'll feel very familiar, but while providing some new and interesting choices. And as we'll see in a minute, we'll be able to check out these refit choices, which really have a big effect on the game and really allow you to shape it yourself. You can play different strategies, try more defensive, try more offensive, and it really just allows you a lot more freedom, I think.
All right, Brad, switch back to me. I've got the turn.
All right, I got you.
All right.
So I promise it'll be good. If you cut off the supply line of that armor unit that just ran behind enemy lines and doesn't have any gas left.
All right, Craig, I'm going to trust you once. Once.
He fed you a unit.
He says he fed me a unit.
Yeah, well, that's true.
So you got to move somebody to Materia, to Brescia from.
All right.
Yeah, perfect.
Nice.
You're cut off.
Now we're back on the speedy track. Yeah, I know we're over 45. If you want to pass.
Yeah, let's keep going for another 10 minutes, but then I'm gonna turn into a pumpkin at that point.
No worries. If you
just pass, we'll get to the refit decision.
Right. So
all right.
The combat period will end if you.
All right, so I'm gonna pass.
Well, you can attack.
Okay.
I'm gonna hop over to Craig's screen because he'll have the first choice, and he can kind of talk you through the different choices.
So, like I said before, we're choosing whether or not we want to do a refit or an offensive for this next period, and you can see kind of some of the stats that your subordinate officer is presenting you with what the choice gives you. So, the essential choice for the Commonwealth is if you attack, you don't get your unit upgrades. Your unit upgrades increase the maximum strength of your units. You get the new tank icons. and you get a lot of replacements if you do a refit. But if you get offensive, you get to push back a little bit. At this point, if I attacked you, I'd probably take more damage than I give. So I'm just going to sign off on a refit order here and pass that over to you.
Now, I note that you've got a little intelligence report there that says that my supply is nearly exhausted. Is that always accurate?
It's always accurate, but it's not very precise. So the Axis has a integer number, some finite number of points. You need 5 to attack, 1 per unit plus to power up guys, and we didn't want to make that completely known, so we kind of give you a little fuzzy representation of that. So I guess at some point maybe we'll post what the mapping is to how many points it is to what the little text is. But
don't do that too soon. I enjoy the mystery.
Yeah.
All right. So I've got my turn over here. So let's.
Yeah. So open up the briefing. I'll show you something that'll help you make this decision. So click on disengagements. So if you decide to refit, which you'll have to actually, because you don't have enough supplies, everybody kind of restores the lines and kind of comes back to where they can be supplied.
Okay.
Is that my order?
Yeah. Sorry.
I was rather enjoying that, but all right.
Slow to start.
I've got these. I've got units that ended up in an enemy-controlled space because they didn't win the combat, and they get moved back to my lines.
Yeah, they just and if they just move, across one border, they don't suffer any ill effects. They just kind of get moved. But if they have to move more than one space, then they start to get hurt for each of those spaces they hop. And you see my armor there actually has got just an X right through him. So he's so far behind enemy lines that by the time they get back, they're just gonna retire. Right. That unit's gonna be destroyed.
Interesting. All right. Yeah, there's a lot of changes to the formula here. This is very interesting. All right, so now I've got in a very German Gothic font printout. I've got my choice to refit or go on offensive.
Right.
Exactly.
I see that my supply officer tells me quite curtly that I have no choice but to refit.
That's right.
Exactly.
Oh, and wow! I get Rommel's signature and everything. That's very cool. Very cool.
So then the different refit phases. So this is a slightly different briefing presentation because it's a refit week. So here you've got replacements. So same as before, only you've got a lot. This is a good time to press auto assign. I think the main reason we started out that auto assign button is because it's unit type specific as well as nationality specific. You're like, oh man, where's that one Italian infantry? I can't find them. So like,
right.
Sometimes that's a good reason to press auto assign too. Or if you've got a ton and you don't really care where they go.
And so now it's giving me the option to redeploy. So here's where I can shuffle units around.
Right.
That's right. So anybody who's a newly arrived reinforcement can take his space in the front. Just doesn't cost anything to move those guys around. But to move other guys around, you've got a limited number of shuffles before that's done. So move a couple guys around, and I'll show you a little user interface cheat that might come in handy.
Okay.
So you're familiar with the undo button. We actually added a little trick in this game where if you hold the undo button for a second or so, it
undoes everything I've done.
Oh wow.
So if you just had like 20 points of reinforcements assigned, that could be convenient to unwind those. You can do that in any phase.
Interesting. That's don't do that by accident though, because you want to punch yourself in the face after you've undone 20 minutes of moving.
If you're taking 20 minutes to move,
Well, look, some of us are still learning the rules, Craig. All right, some of us are still learning the rules here.
And that's one of the advantages of async play is, you don't know if they're thinking about it for 20 minutes or they,
or if they're paralyzed.
And speaking of learning the rules, we've really worked hard on. You don't have to show us this, but just the tutorial system. we now have a series of 4 tutorial scenarios, so you can actually play through those and learn the rules as you play. So there's like contextual pop-ups that will come as you take certain actions, and the scenarios have fewer units, so they're very focused.
Oh, you're placing mines now. This is some exciting stuff. So
I love this.
5 mines to place, and anywhere you've got a unit, you can drop down a mine.
Right. So, this is neat. So I can cover all these crossroads off. So now, do minefields stop? So earlier we saw recon units can range really far, really fast all over the map. Would a space, an unoccupied space that had a minefield in it, stop that kind of movement?
Yes, it would always end the movement of any unit that was coming through, and then they'd have to try to clear it. And even if they did clear it, they'd still be stopped there for the rest of the turn.
No. Oh wow! So I could see how if both sides decide to just sort of turtle and hoard fuel points, hoard supply points, and just lay down mines every week, it can get very World War I, can't it?
It can. So one of the things, there's different incentives for the different players to kind of push you towards a conclusion. So one of the things that happens is after about week 11, the Axis player starts to get points for every single turn that they're still on the map. So if you don't attack him, he's going to get 1,000,000 points. So the Commonwealth has to push at some point in order to do that. And obviously, the German player has more forces on the field and can really, if you get those supplied armor units attacking with combined arms, you're going to do some real damage. But in order to do that, you need to have supplied units. So you're kind of limited by how much supply you have. So that's kind of the incentives to push people towards a conclusion.
Very cool. All right, let's wrap it up there. It's been about an hour.
Great.
Thanks very much, guys, for showing us Desert Fox. Brad, how soon until this thing's out?
That's the $1 million question, right? I cannot tell you this time, but very soon. I will, yeah.
Very soon. So I'm going to be a real jerk here. So very soon, like this summer. Very soon, like 6 weeks. How very soon? Come on, Brad.
Very soon. Definitely this summer.
Definitely this summer.
Yep. I can say that right now.
And it's gonna be a universal app right off the bat.
Correct. So iPhone, iPad, day one, you can play it. Cross-platform multiplayer between those 2 devices. So yeah, it should be fun. It's the first time we've done a universal launch, so we're excited to see the response, and I think it'll be great because we know we have a lot of fans on iPhone, and they'll be able to get it day one with everyone else and join in the party.
Very exciting. All right, guys. Thanks for your time. Thanks to Brad and Craig. We've learned a lot about Desert Fox. We've learned not to trust Craig Moffett. And, yeah, had a good time. So, all right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all very soon.
Take care. Bye.